What is up, everyone? Brandon First, aka First Report, representing the First Off the Bench podcast network. Everyone comes off the bench. We are first. Welcome into week 18. That's right, our first ever week 18 in the NFL season. Breakdown from a betting perspective, as always, here on the NFL Weekly on the First Off the Bench podcast network. With me, as always, is my co-host Raider Jim Martinez. You can find Mr. Martinez at Raider Jim 1090. How you doing today, sir?
I am doing well. It was a little warmer this morning. I had to, woe is me, the California kid, but I was out on Monday, Tuesday with a credit card and a spatula getting ice off my windows, and just something I'm still not used to.
Yeah, never, ever. I'm sorry, and I believe it. I am fair weather. There is absolutely no doubt about it. But yeah, when there's frost on your car, and you're in Southern California, yeah, you're gonna have to scratch your head in terms of what that's a Google search. How to get rid of, all kinds of different tricks out there. But yeah, it's definitely a little nippy. Really, everywhere out throughout the country, I'm sure there are plenty of people, like we said, shaking their heads at us for talking about a little bit of frost while their cars are probably 2 feet under some snow coming up. But as I said, back to the point at hand, or the task at hand, it is time to look ahead to the week 18 of the NFL season, the final week of this bonus season or bonus game of the season. Now, a little disclaimer, not every game is going to be talked about. Let's be honest, there are some games with zero playoff implications that are going to be really tough because a lot of coaches have already come out and been pretty straightforward in terms of we're not going to, we're going to be, a lot of teams use this as a backup quarterback situation. Let's see what the kids got, and the lines are already. For example, there was the Green Bay Detroit game opened. Green Bay is 11-point favorites. Obviously, nothing to play for Green Bay. Most of the starters are going to sit. That line has come down to 2.5. If you would like to go bet that game, you feel free. That won't be a game we're going to be talking about. We're going to be focusing on the games that have actual playoff implications, mainly seeding, as there's not a whole lot of playoff spots open, if you will. But let's start at the top. It will be Saturday. We got 2 games on Saturday. We'll start with the nightcap. It will be Dallas at Philadelphia. Dallas is 7-point favorites for this one. The over-under here is 43. In terms of what to play for here, Dallas could possibly get all the way up to the 2 seed. Will, of course, need some help. More than likely going to be that 4 seed if everything kind of holds out. However, for them to move up at all, they have to win this game. For the Eagles, it's done. I mean, they can win this game and hope the next day that they move into the 6. But for the Eagles, I think the way they run their offensive attack, I think it's smart. Let Gardner Minshew do his thing. We saw how close Jalen Hurts came to last week having a catastrophic injury, and it was after the game when the railing collapsed in Washington. So you have to be careful with that. It's going to be a tough game to call. Feel free to download the Colorcast app. I'm going to be doing some live commentary for that game. Follow me on First Report. But the 7-point spread here, I do like Dallas here. I think the number is going to continue to swell. I think Nick Sirianni won't sit his starters, but we're not going to see a healthy dose of Jalen Hurts and Boston Scott running the ball right down their throats. I think they're going to take this week to kind of take a deep breath. I think Dallas has something to play for. They know even if they win, they might not move up, but they have to win if they do have any chance to. In terms of the over-under, I'm going to take the under here. I think 2 really good defenses and 2 teams that it's a possibility that these 2 teams meet in wild card weekend. So we might not see the whole, kitchen sink in terms of film, things like that. So we'll see how that goes. But Raider Jim, what are your thoughts with the Cowboys 7-point favorites on the road against the Philadelphia Eagles?
Yeah, I don't think there's going to be any let up on either side of this one. I think Dallas is going to be Dallas, just look at their away record. They're 6-2 on the road this year. And that being said, I think it's, 7 probably just the way Dallas plays. Dallas, if they get ahead by 7, they are liable to still try to run it up and put another touchdown on the board. But I think it's going to be, I don't know what the weather's going to be back there. What have we got for weather?
Yeah, that was one thing I didn't check there.
Actually, they don't even have it down on no weather information available as of today for any of the games, and that is on Vegas.com, Vegas Insider, I should say. Interesting.
Yeah, I think there's the East Coast might be getting a big, storm coming in, and I think it's
Right.
a little bit too early for them to kind of pinpoint what day it will come in. But I think it will be safe to say it's going to be at the very least cold, a lot colder than Dak and Zeke are, I think, used to out there. But
I do like the under in this one, though. I'm with you.
two good defenses, like I said. I mean, Dallas's defense. I actually saw something that was very interesting. Trevon Diggs has had a great year with interceptions. He actually has given up the most yards in terms of covering guys and stuff like that. So something to think about there. But a team that's fantastic at turning the ball over. Speaking of another team that's fantastic at turning the ball over, the Kansas City Chiefs will head to Denver. This will be the Saturday game in the afternoon, I believe 1:30 Pacific, 4:30 Eastern. The spread here will have Kansas City as 10-point favorites. The over-under sits at 44.5. In terms of what is played for, or what they're playing for, Kansas City is playing for a possible 1 seed. They will need some help, but they will have to win first and foremost. Denver, they were eliminated last week. Nothing to play for them other than pride, and it is their final home game. It is a division rival. But Raider Jim, what are your thoughts? Kansas City 10-point favorites. Over under here is 44.5.
Yeah, I wish I'd have seen this 2 days ago when it was opening at -3 for Kansas City. That would have been great. I would have taken that all day
did people
long.
think that they weren't going to play for a 1 seed? I mean, my
Right?
goodness.
Yeah, but as it is in Denver, weirder things have happened this season. That I'll tell you. And after the letdown, it's going to be one of two things for Kansas City. I have a feeling they're going to come out for blood, though, because that was a tough one for them last week. And I guess to some, they were shocked and surprised. Quite honestly, I wasn't. I did have Cincinnati on that one come Sunday morning. So, and I had the over in that one too. So all the way around, it was pretty good for me. But on this one, 10, I don't know. I think I would take Denver to cover the 10 in this one. Kansas City probably gets the win, but it's going to be cold. We already know what the weather is in Denver. So it's not going to be a runaway, I don't believe, by any stretch. I do think under 45 would be the way to go. It's 44.5, but I give it a half point, but under 45. Kansas City probably gets the win on the road, but not in a rout. I just don't think it's going to be in a rout.
Yeah, this is interesting. I was talking to you about a little bit earlier. This is the first time I believe, at least I can remember, maybe the first time ever that we've had the final game of, or excuse me, the final week of the NFL regular season, and we have games on Saturday. The NFL is usually pretty good at, I mean, you'll have a situation where 8 or 10 games are at the 125, at least on the West Coast, 425 on the East Coast. That slot, so that nobody kind of gets a competitive advantage because the Kansas City situation right now, if they go into halftime and it's, let's just say in Kansas City or in Denver, it's 14-7 Kansas City. And they look across the TV and it's 31-0 Tennessee. They're going to pull their guys. It's over. Like, not over, but I mean, their game does no longer matters. They don't have that luxury now. Now you can be in Kansas City's locker room and understand, okay, we have to win, and the Houston Texans have to beat the Tennessee Titans. I think we all know that's going to be a very slim chance, but it is a little interesting here. Once again, the sitting part of things does kind of concern me. However, you also do look at Cincinnati. Cincinnati could win and jump Kansas City. So at the same time, Kansas City does have things to play for. I don't think they're going to fully pack it in. But I agree with you. I don't think we're seeing 10 full points being covered here. I think Denver has, whether or not it's the last game for Vic Fangio, he is going to, that team I think is better than what they've shown lately. And I think they want to prove that, at least keep this close. I do think we see something closer. And I do actually like the under as well. I as you said, the weather will be a factor here. Another part of this too is even with Kansas City going, oh my goodness, we might fall into the 3 seed. I don't think week 18 you're going to see too many exotic plays from a lot of these teams. They're gonna make you go deep into the playbook, or at least the film room, to find some of these gimmick plays. They're not going to give it to you Denver week 18 with relatively nothing to play for. So I agree with you on both of those. But moving on, we focus our attention to the AFC East, where we know Buffalo and New England both in the playoffs. It's just time to determine who will get the division title. We'll start in Miami, where the Patriots will head down south. They will be 6.5-point favorites over the Dolphins. The over-under here is 40. And then once again, for New England to win the division, they will have to win and Buffalo will have to lose. Even if they win and Buffalo wins, they are stuck in at the 5 seed. Raider Jim, what are your thoughts? The Patriots 6.5-point favorites in Miami.
Yeah, I mean, they lost too much up front, but it was a shame to see Miami put on the streak that they did and still be left out in the cold. But again, kind of like the Raiders, you got to take care of your own business and not rely on other people. In this one, I have a feeling New England, they very, very much want to finish out with a bang. They're 6-1 on the road this year. I can see them easily covering the 6.5. So for me, it's going to be, especially in Miami, I don't think it's inclement at all in Miami. So I'll take I'll take New England. Miami, give me a 0.5 point on that one. Miami -6. The over-under on this one is at 40. I'll even go over on this one because I think there's going to be a few more points on the board than we might expect.
Yeah, I agree. I like the over here as well. Like you said, weather. I mean, look, it's not going to be 75 and perfect, but it's not going to be 0. So it's going to be easy for the New England Patriots, or at least the weather-wise, if they do their thing to go out and put up points. New England is, I would say, unfamiliar territory. Usually, they're the ones kind of in the driver's seat for the AFC East, not last year withstanding, obviously. Big test for the Patriots. And I agree with you. I think Miami is very similar, and we see in horse racing. You see a horse maybe get a bad break and they're going around the turn and you go, oh my gosh, look at this horse. What a run. And they hit the final furlong and that horse is on empty.
Tired.
It worked all that way. Unfortunately, their ceiling was that. And you don't normally see a second burst in those situations. This, of course, would be that quote unquote second burst. I agree with you. I think Brian Flores, I don't want to say packed it in because he's done enough to save his job, but I also think they look around and go, it's taken a lot to get here. It's really unfortunate. They were at 7-game winning streak and they lose 1 and then boom, they're eliminated from the playoffs. I mean, absolutely no rope or no net, I should say, but a great valiant effort, just not going to be enough. And like you said, I agree with you. I'm comfortable at 6.5. I think it will be a touchdown plus in this one. And I think the biggest thing for New England is they want to not back into the playoffs. This is a team that's scuffling a bit. They're going to be in the playoffs. They have that wrapped up, but this was a team that was flirting with a 1 seed about a month ago, and now they're out on the outside of their own division. So the other side of that conundrum in the AFC East is, of course, the New York Jets heading to Buffalo to take on the Bills. Obviously, like I said, the Jets haven't had anything to play for since week 4 or 5. And Buffalo, with a win, will win another division title, at least a back-to-back division title. 16.5 points for Buffalo in this one. 42.5 is the over-under. Raider Jim, what are your thoughts? Buffalo, heavy favorites at home against the Jets.
Let me tell you, though, I will say you're absolutely right. And we're not geniuses and savants by telling everybody the Jets have been out of it and they've got nothing to play for. But they didn't have anything to play for last week. And look what they did. They put up some good points against guys that are front runners for probably making it to the Super Bowl. And so if nothing else, it's like, let's give a big FU on the way out the door to this one. They did get beat by 13. The Bills beat them by 13, but that was by 13, and they did go over 60 points in that one. I'm going to go ahead. This would be my upset of the week and say, sure, I'll take 17 points in the Jets all day long to cover. I think they're going to cover that. Now, over under at 42 and a half. I know my daughter's back in Maryland and she's still sending pictures today of the great white blanket that's out there because they are just getting hammered. So under 43 in that one, but definitely I think the Jets might come out and say, what do we got to lose? Let's pull out all the stops. Let's just let's have a good time.
Yeah, it's just to kind of piggyback on what you talked about with the weather and the lines. We actually talked about the game, the last game, Denver game. That actually has the highest over under of any outdoor stadium. 49 and a half is the highest number we'll talk about with the Raiders, but that's of course in a dome. And then of course the Rams are also, I think, at like 48, but that's also in a dome. So that's definitely something to keep an eye on. And in this one, the Jets, I'm not touching this one myself. It's very tempting to hit 17, but it's also very, likely that this team, really, really does struggle, because I go back to last year, the Jets against your Raiders. It was very similar to what happened last week. They're, maybe not, obviously the Raiders weren't defending Super Bowl champs and Derek Carr is by no means Tom Brady, but the Jets were very close to upsetting the Raiders and kind of, taking the Raiders out of the playoff spot. And I know eventually they fell off, but that would have been oh my gosh, you couldn't even beat the Jets. And a late touchdown might have been the last play of the game, in the last 3 seconds, whatever it was. Same thing this past weekend. This is going to be a tough one. I think Buffalo, the biggest question I would have is, if I could kind of look into a crystal ball, is look and see what the end of the first quarter is, or the end of the, heading in with 5 minutes to go in the first half. Because if Buffalo's up 21-0, if Buffalo's up 24-0, then I think it's very, very possible that the Jets can sneak in, because, Buffalo just goes, okay, we've won this game. Let's sit Josh Allen down. Keep him warm just in case. But yeah, but if the Bills get off to a very quick start, it's almost kind of counterintuitive. But if it's close early, they might blow it open late. This is a tough one because let's be honest, as we said, the Jets don't have anything to play for. I do like over 42 and a half, though. At the very least, I could see the Buffalo offense getting, 75, 80% of those points by themselves.
Sure.
If it does get really bad. But we'll see how that goes. I will say the Buffalo run game getting there, but I think they really, really do need that Josh Allen. He's good, but I feel like sometimes he's just hit a little too much, and they're one hit away from being essentially a non-factor. But moving on to the NFC South, not a whole lot to figure out here, just seeding. It is Carolina heading to Tampa Bay. The Buccaneers are 8-point favorites. The over-under here is 41 and a half. Tampa Bay is hoping to get the 2 seed. They will get the 2 seed with a win and a Rams loss. We'll see how that goes. It's going to be very, very interesting. Obviously, the big question, or at least, for me, maybe the headline of the weekend, the Antonio Brown less than graceful exit. And I will say this, look, I'm not condoning what Antonio Brown did, but as somebody who worked in the service industry, look, I understand it. You know how many times I fantasized about walking out of my job like that, just throwing up the deuces and just walking out. Obviously, the pay rate is a little different there. But anyways, Raider Jim, what are your thoughts? Carolina heading to Tampa Bay. The Buccaneers are 8-point favorites. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, tongue in cheek, I say, the opening line on this one was Tampa Bay minus 16 and a half. Then I guess when they confirmed that Antonio wasn't going to be part of the team anymore, it went all the way down to 8. I guess that's what drove the number. I don't know. And a funny side story there on everybody wanting to quit their job that way. I just heard a story from one of the local radio personalities, and they were going to play a clip of somebody who went off in a Walmart, grabbed the microphone, and just basically read the riot act to the whole staff and on their way out. This guy tells the story of being on his job, and he'd had it. He was going to quit, go out in a blaze of glory. He went in, told off the boss, threw his key at him, turned around and left. When he got home, he had thrown his apartment key at the boss. and he still had the key to the business in his pocket. And he had to go, and he said he got lucky because when he got back, he said, he goes, the good Lord was looking down on me, because when I stuck my head into his office, he wasn't there. So I went over to his desk, opened the drawer, there was my apartment key. I switched keys and I left. But he said, he said it was beautiful. I just went in there, told the guy exactly what I thought of him, threw my key at him, and got home. It's like, why doesn't my key work? So
Yeah.
there's repercussions there, people. I thought it was interesting. I think it really speaks to what's going on with Antonio Brown. There's so much more to it than meets the eye. For him to leave $1 million on the table when he was so close to getting all his incentives, $333,333 for one more touchdown, I think it was, and 5 more receptions, and then there was another 333. I don't know. So I just hope that he doesn't become too much of a punchline, because there's more under this than what we all witnessed, unless he really is just as big of a buffoon as he's carrying on to be. But anyway, best of luck to him in his future. As far as this game goes, though, I think Tampa Bay is going to come out, play a solid game. I think Carolina is just going to be Carolina, and they just aren't bringing it to the table anymore. So I would take the Tampa Bay, maybe give me a point on that one, make it 7 instead of 8. The over under at 41.5. I would say, keep it under 42 and you're good to go.
Yeah. Carolina more than once has, let's just say, failed to carry the over part of the deal. And it was, I believe, a few weeks ago against Tampa Bay where, the number was 41. And I went, goodness gracious. I mean, Tampa could score, 35 by themselves. And they scored 31 and they won 31-6, I think it finally was. And it was like, great. Couldn't get in the end zone just to, help me out. But so I'm not going to fall into that trap. I will keep it the under as well. This is another one of those tricky games because it's in that time slot where, and this is a lot less likely than Tennessee blowing out Houston at halftime. But, look, if the Rams get up early on the Niners, and like I said, not likely, but if they're up 31-0 at halftime or something, Tampa Bay has nothing to play for. They're locked in at the 3. They would have already figured out what happened with Dallas, and I don't even think Dallas can make a move on them. So it's going to be interesting there. That is something I do worry about, but I think Tampa Bay easily here, like you said, opening up at 16.5. My goodness. I think it's more the question of who and how many snaps the starters will get that brought it down to 8. But I like that. I'd take this probably up all the way up to maybe 9.5. I think anything in single digits you'll feel good about, because I do think Tampa Bay is going to get the job done in a game that they may not necessarily need, but will want to go out and get the job done for that. So moving on as I pull up, let me get myself ready on the spreadsheet. There we are. Okay, this will be the Tennessee Titans at the Houston Texans. Tennessee is 10-point favorites. The over-under here is 43. Obviously, Tennessee, it's very simple for them. They win this game. They are the 1 seed. They get the bye. The AFC playoff run through Nashville. That is huge for that franchise. Also, on top of that, today, Derrick Henry not only practiced, but was activated from the IR. So the beast is back, if you will. Nice little tune-up game with all due respect to the Houston Texans, but that's what this is. They do have to win the game, but I think it'd be very difficult for anybody who could sit here and make a case for Houston to win this game. But it's been kind of one of those years. I don't think this is it, though. But Raider Jim, what are your thoughts? Tennessee taking on the Texans.
Yeah, for starters, if I'm Tennessee, I don't put Henry near the field. I just save him. Save him until you need him. Let him have a couple more weeks rest. Let him get out there and practice with some light pads, half pads, and leave it at that. As far as this game goes, you're right. Houston's not going to win this one. However, on the betting side of things, I'm going to stick with what happened the last time these two teams met. And a really bad Houston team went into Tennessee. They lost by 9, but they played a good defensive game, and it ended up being a total points of I think it was 35. I think it was like it was low mid 30s is what it was. So for this to go Houston plus 10, 10 and a half, and then under 43 all day long, I think you can score on this one.
Yeah, I agree with the over. I think we're going to see some points, whether or not Derrick Henry gets a ton of touches. For Houston, look, this team is not very good, but Davis Mills can make some throws. He's not terribly consistent, and he's got a lot to work on, but you can put some of those highlight packages and the best of, if you will, and that's an NFL quarterback. You know, the other parts, the other 70%, that's the problem. But that's why I think they at least have a bit of a puncher's chance. I mean, there was a few weeks ago, I think he started 14 for 14, something like that. Very, you know, if you can continue to channel that, that's great. 10 here, I also believe is a little too much for Tennessee. I think Tennessee's gonna, like you said, kind of manage the game, manage everyone, want to kind of put on the appearance of wanting to win this game, and they do, but also do it with as few starting bodies as possible. It's kind of that little limbo game for them. But like, I do think we are going to see some points being scored.
You don't want to risk anything now. And we talked about that back in the last game of the preseason. What's going to happen when it gets to 17 and 18? And you have all these teams that are jockeying for position, or those that are already ahead. How many starters do you really want to put out there?
Yep.
So in some instances, not necessarily these playoff implication games, but some of these other games, it might as well be the last week of preseason.
Yeah. I will say maybe for Tennessee, the way they look at it, some of the guys, maybe they look at it like, hey, this might be 2 weeks. I know from a baseball mindset, you do worry about rust. But for football, I think anybody in their right mind would take the rust scare over the rest, because the rest is key. Getting that extra week to get the body, whatever you got to do, and that is very, very key. So it's going to be interesting. I think Tennessee, like you said, look, they're safe winning this game by double digits. That's another question. So moving on to the New Orleans Saints, heading to Atlanta. The Saints currently are 4.5-point favorites. The over-under here is 40. In terms of the playoff implications, Atlanta has none. Despite a, maybe somewhat better than expected season, they are not in the playoff hunt. New Orleans will need a win and a San Francisco loss to make the playoffs. Being 4.5-point favorites here in Atlanta, what are your thoughts, Raider Jim, with the Saints trying to win and hope on a prayer?
There it is again. Take care of your own business. Don't leave it up to this guy beats that guy, and if this guy wins and we lose and all that other stuff, that just makes me pull my hair out. San Francisco, I don't see them beating the Rams, so they've got that on their side because that's who San Francisco is playing this week, and they need to win. And Atlanta just has been too inconsistent this year. So for New Orleans to win this one, I think they're in. And it's really interesting. You look back a couple of years ago, it was Ryan again and Breeze. Can you imagine that matchup and the over-under being 40? That's like a first half over-under.
That would have been the only way, as if they were playing Bobby Dodd Stadium outdoors, maybe in the greater Atlanta or New Orleans area, something like that.
So I'll give New Orleans the 4.5 on this one. I think they'll just take care of business handily. Atlanta just hasn't even done anything at home this year. And this is, hopefully, who knows, this might be the last hurrah for Matt Ryan too.
Yeah, that's a great thing to bring up as well. Someone who's, at the very least on the tail end of his career. I've been impressed with Taysom Hill lately. He's been a little more composed. Yeah. I think he's protected the football more. And I think for him, he's obviously had a chip on his shoulder. And believe me, if anybody deserves to have a chip on his shoulder, it's Taysom Hill. And I understand that, but I feel like sometimes he tries to do too much. And for me, it's just embrace who you are. It's the dirty word, the game manager. I know, but you know what? Ryan Tannehill is making a lot of money being a game manager, whether he wants to admit it or not. he is a game manager. Alex Smith, when he was doing his thing, made a lot of money being a game manager. Not the end of the world. It's a lot better than, say, a Baker Mayfield, a gunslinger who more than likely will be looking for a new team come next year. So it's not the end of the world. Taysom Hill, enjoy that. And you have a very good running game and a very good defense. So I think for him, he just needs to take a deep breath. Obviously, there are things out of his control this week with needing the Niners to win or lose, I should say. But I agree with you. I think they handle their business. I do wonder, does this turn into a situation where it gets very close and we head to a situation where the Saints end up needing a field goal late and the 4.5 isn't fully covered? That's the only worry I have here. So maybe if you want to find another game you're really comfortable with, or two, you find a three game money line parlay to get that a little, because look, the Saints, I don't have the money line on Vegas Insider, but if they're 4-point favorites, you're going to probably be looking at about minus 160, minus 180, not a ton of value there. So you might need to find some other parlay picks, or at least money lines if you want to get value on that one individual. But I do believe New Orleans wins this game. I just worry about a situation where Atlanta makes it difficult and New Orleans has to, survive late with a late field goal.
And here's one thing to keep in mind, because you and I often, either one of us or both of us will, during the course of the broadcast, say, what's going to happen is they're going to look at game film. This team's going to look at the game films because this is, that's where they showed their weaknesses. So I have a feeling the game film that Atlanta's going to look at is going to go back to November 7th when they played the Saints in New Orleans and beat them 27-25 when they were 6.5-point underdogs in that one. So there's a little more food for thought as I went back and looked at the records for the year, and now I got my own self thinking.
Throw some more doubt into that call,
right?
Well, but moving on to an AFC North matchup. For the first time in a very long time, these two teams are meeting late in the season, and there's not really any playoff implications really for both teams. But we'll go with the Pittsburgh Steelers at the Baltimore Ravens. The Ravens are 5.5-point favorites. The over-under here is 41.5. Baltimore has a very slim chance, but at the top of their scenarios to make the playoffs, it is win this game. Once again, everything else will have to figure itself out. 5.5 is the number for Baltimore at home against the rival Steelers. Raider Jim, what are your thoughts there?
I'll tell you, after what I saw in Pittsburgh the other night, and they know they've got to win, I very much see them coming out and taking care of their own business this coming week. The man can barely walk at the end of a game, but they've got that great nucleus right now. That was really something to watch, the way that entire team came around Ben Roethlisberger and just gave it all on the field just for him. They did it for him. And I think this, give me Pittsburgh +7 all day long in this one, because I think that's what's going to happen. Baltimore, what a shocker. The entire season, what a shocker. Nobody thought, or at least I did not think, that they would be out of the playoffs by any stretch. So, but give me Pittsburgh +7 in this one. And I think it's going to go over 41.
I agree with you for a multitude of reasons on the over. And all of them kind of start with Ben Roethlisberger. Now look, as a human being, as a role model, he's terrible. He's the worst. And look, you can look on your own time of what he's been either accused of or whatever, blah, blah, blah. But at the very least, he is someone who puts himself in some very odd situations. But as a football player and a quarterback, 60 minutes, that's your leader, that's your QB1. It's hard to fault him. Now, he's not what he used to be. And when you have those kind of big, burly quarterbacks that get older, they don't run. And, Roethlisberger, man, when he was young, he was, you didn't want to have to tackle this guy. He was kind of like a fullback who could throw the football, and now obviously he's still big, but he's definitely not nearly as fast. There is no better way. If Ben Roethlisberger could write the story. Obviously, it would be winning a Super Bowl. But if it couldn't be that, it would be going to Baltimore and ending Baltimore's season, whether or not they were going to make the playoffs or not, because everything else had to happen. But him going there and making it, I did that. You didn't have any chance because I beat you. Going back to last week, I think a big part of it, you talked about the team rallying around Ben. Ben Roethlisberger has still never lost on Monday night as a Steeler quarterback. That is incredible, folks. I mean, he's been in the league for almost 16, 17, 18 years, played in all kinds of Monday night football games, never lost. That might be only at home, I'm not sure, but he is definitely undefeated one way or another on Monday night, whether it's only at home or overall. And the final piece of that puzzle is Mike Tomlin. One final let's go is worth chucking this. Mike Tomlin's calling up the Coryell grandson and saying, hey, I will give you $100,000. Get me that Air Coryell offensive playbook out of the attic, and we're going to light this up. We might see Roethlisberger throw for 60 passes, and his arm may literally fall off after this game. But I agree with you. I think Baltimore is they are a fighter who the towel should have been thrown in a while ago. The fact that they technically still have a chance is a little ridiculous. But I do think, like you said, not only does Pittsburgh win, this is a game that I think you should give real consideration to the money line here. Now, I will say one big thing. Does Mike Tomlin maybe go the other route and turn this into maybe a little bit of a ceremony, and halfway through the first quarter makes a big deal of pulling Roethlisberger out? That could be something, but the fact that this is on the road, I think you don't do that. Right. If it was in Pittsburgh, then I think you have to think about that. But I think overall, just look at how it will go, and you just hope that everybody plays how you want them, or at least plays to win the game. I think you like Pittsburgh +7. I completely agree with you. And no reason why we don't see some points. Even if we do see some inclement weather, I mean, Ben Roethlisberger is the guy. Him and Brady are the two guys that seem to be able to, and Rodgers, who be able to beat up or be really good in cold weather regardless. So,
and going back in the files again, we go back 4 weeks ago, Baltimore at Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh wins 20-19, covers the 4-point spread. So again, more food for thought.
And that was a game, I believe they came from behind. I feel like Baltimore was dominating that game for large portions. And then it's so Pittsburgh, be down 17-3 heading into the fourth quarter and win 20-17, one way or another. But moving on to the other part of the AFC North, it is the Cincinnati Bengals at the Cleveland Browns. The Bengals are 2-point favorites on the road. The over-under here is 40. Cincinnati does have an outside shot to get the 3 seed. That would be their ceiling. They possibly could fall below Buffalo. So they're not going to get the 1 seed. More than likely, they'll stay right there at the 3. Their best option is to, well, like most of these teams, win. If they win, they're the 3. Maybe could move up to the 2, but no worse than the 3. Raider Jim, what are your thoughts? Cleveland hosting Cincinnati with the Bengals as 2-point favorites.
Yeah, Cincinnati, even though they're sitting pretty right now, I think they're going to come out and play a real football game. They're going to play a full 60 minutes. Cleveland has just got too many issues right now. They're just walking around kind of with their hands in the air. Now what do we do? Which is real surprising to me. I thought they would have a much better year. They've lost 3 in a row, even though they're at home. I see this one being Cincinnati all the way. And you can get Cincinnati +6 right now. Really. You got it. Vegas Insider has the current spread at -6 Cleveland. You gotta just drop money on that one. And the over-under's at 38, and I think Cincinnati's going to come out. I think it's going to be a better game than people think as far as points go.
I must have Freudian slipped. Wait, Cincinnati. That's interesting, huh? I don't know where I got that, because that was the
It shows the opening line at Cleveland -1.5, current line -6.
Wow, interesting. I don't know what was happening there when I put the spreadsheet together, but anyway, yeah, even better. Unless have they come out and maybe said Burrow will say, I'm not sure. That doesn't make a ton of sense, but it's enough. I mean, look, we saw Jamar Chase. My goodness. Can anybody stop this man? This is a guy in Cincinnati, the years of turmoil, if you will. And then even Andy Dalton, look, Carson Palmer, Andy Dalton, that's been kind of the ceiling for this, at least new age. The Boomer Esiason Bengals were, going to the Super Bowl. That was great.
Right.
But this is the future. I think all Bengals fans look and go, oh my goodness, Joe Mixon, Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, Tyler Boyd, a really good defense, a really good young coach. I'm sure there are plenty of people in Cincinnati saying this is the new dynasty. Well, we'll see how that goes. They took a huge step last week. Not only did I say that was a big measuring stick game for them against Kansas City, but if you would have told me that they would have been down 14 points twice in that game, I would have told you, wow, Kansas City gets the job done, wins by at least 10 points.
Right.
No, Cincinnati pulled themselves up and got the job done. And in case there were any doubters on Joe Burrow being a franchise quarterback, I don't know how you can still doubt him. Honestly, it's incredible to me. He is a top 10 quarterback, possibly top 5. He is so good. He has everything. He reminds me a lot, and I it's crazy, but at least looking back, I wasn't young enough to know Joe Namath, but he reminds me a lot of Joe Namath. He has that kind of moxie. He has that bravado about him. And he is unapologetic about it.
Yeah, the cigar in the locker room was very Namath.
Yes, exactly. And I love it. I love everything about him. I've loved him since LSU. I love that, Craig Mizrak, our friend, has, after years and years of laughing at himself, can hopefully laugh at other teams. Now we'll get to this in the coming weeks. I don't know if they're fully ready to take that step. But in terms of this week, like you said, you got to take, plus 6.5. Holy cow. You might be looking, you want to take an AFC North parlay and feel real good going moneyline Pittsburgh and moneyline Cincinnati and probably get, 4-5 to 1 return on investment on that. There you go on that one. But keep an eye on who's starting there, because I feel like something fishy's going on.
I just checked. I checked my bookie right now, and my bookie it is Cincinnati +6.
Wow. So yeah, there's got to be something going on. At least that Vegas knows in terms of Joe Burrow or some of these other guys. But moving on to two teams that are very much in the thick of the playoff race. San Francisco 49ers at the Los Angeles Rams. The Rams are 4.5-point favorites. The over-under here is 44.5. San Francisco, very simple. They win, they're in. The Rams, a little more convoluted. They're already in, could possibly drop below Tampa Bay, but more than likely, if they win, they stay as the 2 seed. They would host the Eagles more than likely next week. We'll see how that goes. But for San Francisco and LA, both of these teams, look at it. I think this is one of the best games to bet, the second best game to bet, because both of these teams know they but they very much, well, at least the Rams very much need to win. And obviously the Niners definitely have to win this game. Raider Jim, what are your thoughts on this NFC West matchup?
Yeah, I watched a bit of the Rams the other day, and I have to tell you, they looked a little bit more in sync than I had seen the last couple times I watched them. The defense really came to play. And I think, at home, San Francisco, 4.5. Yeah, I think the Rams have this one locked up and no problem. Spread on this one is 44.5. I even think, because of the conditions down here right now, it's going to go over for sure.
Yeah, this is interesting to me because of the fact, just looking it up right now, I lost it, but I think that it's 4 or 5. Last 4 or 5 games, San Francisco has been able to beat the Rams. And obviously the Rams, that in that time, we've talked about a Rams team that's gone to the Super Bowl. Maybe not this incarnation with Matthew Stafford back there, and this, Cooper Kupp, who may be putting up the best campaign for a wide receiver since Megatron.
Amazing.
Unbelievable.
Amazing
this guy
stuff.
this is incredible. Let's be honest. He is on another level. And this offense is getting healthy. Cam Akers is coming back, or at least they're hoping. He's been out since I believe, training camp, and they're expecting him to make his debut this weekend. They've also had Sony Michel, who has played very well in a bit of a resurgence, if you will. Yeah, and the Rams are playing really good. And I'll tell you this right now, I don't want any part of this as an Eagle fan. I don't want to go any part of going across country, even though there will be plenty of Eagle fans there, but going across country and facing a team like this, it's going to be very interesting. So, selfishly, let's go Niners, but then you're also looking at the Buccaneers as well. So it's tough. You're kind of damned if you do, damned if you don't. But for the Niners, I think it's very laid out for them. I am going to take the Rams. I think they are the better team. They have something to play for. 4.5 is enough for me. In terms of the over-under being 44.5, I think you talked about it. I like the under here. I think we are going to see maybe some yards be put up, but we're gonna also see some turnovers. These are two really good defenses, two defensive-minded football teams. So it's going to be very, very interesting, especially considering, for the Niners, they got to get this done. There really won't be any excuse if another year of being ousted by an AFC or NFC West rival. Moving on to arguably the game of the weekend. I know for Raider Jim, this will be, let's just call it tense viewing, if you will. The Chargers heading to Las Vegas to take on the Raiders. The Chargers are 3-point favorites. The over-under here is 49.5. Now, a little interesting here, if we'll talk about our last game we're going to talk about is Indy and Jacksonville. If for some reason Jacksonville wins that game, there is a scenario that the Raiders and Chargers, if they play to a tie, both teams would make the playoffs. And now obviously the conspiracy theories are going. Brandon Staley has already come out and said he is not going, even if that does, first of all, the Jaguars are not going to beat the Colts. But anyways, Brandon Staley said he's not going to do that. So Raider Jim, what are your thoughts? It's all on the line for the Raiders. They've, fought tooth and nail to get to this point. It's going to come down to 60 minutes. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, and before I talk about that Raider game, I looked up online, and here's the reason for the Cincinnati-Cleveland spread. Joe Burrow says, I'm not playing the last game.
Okay. There you go.
And let's add to that, Joe Mixon has COVID.
Yeah. Might as well sit everybody at this point. And
at that point, take your seed and be happy and let everybody get healthy over the next 2 weeks. Anyway, so there's the reason for the 6-point spread. Chargers, Raiders, you couldn't have a better classic matchup. This is old AFL football going back to the 1960s. Vegas, they've done everything wrong this year, and they've done a few things right over the last couple of weeks. They've put together a pretty fair, ugly run, but they've put together a run and they've got themselves in a position to make it. It's all going to come down to how well the defense plays. This one is going to be this is going to have to be, you got to contain the quarterback of the Chargers. On the favorable side for the Raiders, the Chargers are inconsistent. 1 week they play lights out. Next week they play the Houston Texans and they just fall apart. So now they're back on the road against a motivated Raider team. Believe it or not, not that every team isn't motivated, but the Raiders are really going to be playing. They will leave it on the field. They've got to stop the Charger offense. And that means you're going to have to see Perriman. You're going to have to see Hayward if Hayward's playing on Sunday. These guys just got to come around. And the nice thing is, Perriman knows this offense. That you can say, even if he's not 100% and he's not in the game, he's got a little bit of insight. Look for that to be in favor of the Raiders. 3 points, I'd take it money line either way, but I think the Raiders definitely cover on this one. I, of course, am thinking the Raiders are going to pull it out because the spirit of John Madden is going to be looking over them for the rest of the season. It's going to be the latest, greatest, oh my gosh, can you believe what happened back in 2022? 49.5, though, I will say, if they get to 49.5 or above, it's going to be on the Chargers. It's not going to be on the Raiders. Raiders aren't putting up points anymore. So I would go under 50 on this one, because I think if anything, it's going to end up being 27-20, 27-21, something like that. I don't think they're going to get over 50. It's going to be, this is it though. This is it.
Yeah, it's going to be that, for me, the Raiders are, one of my favorite movies of all time is Monty Python and the Holy Grail. And the Raiders are the Black Knight. They're literally just an abdomen, just floating around, just, oh, you think you're better, the one they've cut off his arm, they've cut off his legs, and all he says, oh, 'tis but a scratch. And you're just like, how are you still alive? It's very similar to the Ravens on their side. But you look at the Raiders and go, wait, you're still here? Not only are you still here, but you have a very straightforward, I don't know if it's easy, but you have a very straightforward path to the playoffs. There are a lot of teams that would just kill for an easy win and you're in. And once again, I shouldn't say easy, but it's, once again, straightforward. You know what you have to do. And on the Chargers side of things, you talked about it 2 weeks ago. Wow, they didn't look like they could beat anybody. And now they're in a situation, can they get the job done? I'm not going to bet this game, at least on the spread side of it, mainly because I'm just going to enjoy it and save all the stress of this game for Raider Jim, because I know he'll be taking enough stress for all of us watching this one. It's going to be very interesting. I am going to take the under, though. I do think that we do see more of a defensive battle. I will say, though, look, if we get over 49.5, I'm going to piggyback on what you said. If it's over 49.5, the Raiders don't cover. I just don't know how they stay around in a shootout. Maybe they get up to 21 points, but then it's that we got there because it was 34-21.
Right.
And then you go, but they ran out of bullets. Derek Carr threw a late interception. I've said it from the beginning. He's kind of a step down of a Phillip Rivers. He's going to keep you in games, but he's going to make a mistake in the fourth quarter. It's just guaranteed.
Right. Well, we've seen it. We've seen it throughout the season.
Yeah. I mean, I go back. I was at the game the year the Eagles won the Super Bowl. They played Christmas night. They played against the Raiders. I was at that game in Philadelphia. Nick Foles versus Derek Carr. Two of the worst quarterbacks, at least performances I've ever seen. A minute to go, Derek Carr throws an interception. And it was just like, what are you guys doing? And that's what I'm talking, same thing with Phillip Rivers. Be a lot of times like that. So that's why I can't really bet one way or another, but I do like the under because I think we're going to see a really tough defensive game. And with two teams that know there really won't be any excuse. Some of these other teams can say, oh, well, we did what we needed to do, but the other team won too. So not in this case, but the last game we'll be talking about for the regular season for the NFL. My goodness, how quickly that has come and gone. But the Indianapolis Colts at the Jacksonville Jaguars, the second biggest spread of the weekend here is the Colts 15.5 point favorites on the road. The over under here is 44. Very straightforward for Indy. They win and they are in. Even if they lose, I believe there's a way they get in one way or another.
Yeah.
Outside of a tie between the Raiders and to be honest, in the AFC side of things, it'd be very easy for Indy to win, and then it will just essentially come down to Vegas versus the Chargers. Now, if Jacksonville somehow wins this game, get out your calculators, get out your third tiebreakers and your round robins and all that stuff, because it will get crazy. But let's be honest, are we getting there? I don't think so. 15.5, though, that's a different story. Can Houston cover that? Raider Jim, what are your thoughts? I'm sorry, Jacksonville. Can Jacksonville cover that?
Yeah, and I think that's exactly what what you're leaning towards is what I'm thinking. Indianapolis goes into the fourth quarter up 14. Everybody sits. And then Jacksonville scores a touchdown with 3 minutes to go, and there goes your 15.5.
Yep.
So I think Indy wins. Jacksonville could cover. 44, though. I don't know what the weather's going to be in Jacksonville. 44, it just seems like it's going to be an under. Jacksonville hasn't been putting up much, and I don't think Indianapolis is going to be trying to break any records or do anything to overwhelm anybody. They just want to ground, they want to pound, they want to keep the ball, keep the possessions, and run the clock.
I don't think there's a fan base and an organization that wants a season to end more than the Jacksonville Jaguars.
That's
Let's
good
be
way to
honest,
put
this
it.
season, for a franchise that has had plenty of unmitigated disasters, this one takes the cake. This has been, for them, their worst season, maybe not record wise, but I think overall, and I think for fans and all that stuff, coming into the season, maybe not playoff expectations, but having a Trevor Lawrence have, high expectations. I think Trevor Lawrence, as of right now in the rookie quarterback power rankings, he's on the very bottom, maybe ahead of Trey Lance, but that's only because he's played more than Trey Lance. It's not because of anything we've seen. So there's just this frustration, and you can't really blame them. Obviously, you hope in the offseason they can figure it out, but definition of insanity, probably not going to happen, especially considering they're apparently interested in Jim Harbaugh. Yes, we're going to do that again, folks. By the way, that's for another podcast. But anyways, we'll see if both Harbaugh brothers will be in the NFL. But for the Colts, I agree with you wholeheartedly. It's the same situation we saw with the Jets and Buffalo.
Right.
If the Colts get out to a quick lead, they're going to start sitting. Now, the big difference here, though, I don't know if Jacksonville's starters can do enough against Indy's backups to kind of make that ground up. That's the only caveat I would say. I think Jacksonville's the worst team in the league, no matter what the records say. And this is a team that really is, they're wanderers. They don't really have a leader. I'll be honest with you. I don't know who their interim coach is right now, and I don't really want to take the time to the 5-second Google search because it doesn't matter. So that's literally where their franchise is. I mean, at least for the Jets, I could sit here and tell you and talk to you about Salah and, some of the other things coming up here and there. Jacksonville's just ready for the season to end. Not touching the spread myself. This game and Buffalo game are quintessential live bet games. Keep an eye on the live bet at halftime. See where it's at. Feel how the momentum's rolling. What are you hearing from the sideline reporters? What's going on in other games? This is a quintessential live bet for me, but the under. I'm going to stick with the under for the exact reason you said. Indy has a really good defense, and Jacksonville is at the very best an average offense. That is their ceiling, is an average offense. 14, 17, 20 points. I don't even see them getting to 20.
See 20.
And even if they get to 20, it would be very interesting. It would probably be a 23-20 game. It would be a very wow, I can't believe they almost pulled it off, but probably not going to happen. But Raider Jim, final thoughts for the final regular season episode here of the NFL Weekly, as this time next week, we'll be breaking down the wild card playoffs.
Well, I figure either way, I'm going to cry myself to sleep on Sunday night. I'm going to be so happy that we're back in the playoffs. I'm going to cry myself to sleep, or I'm going to be so disappointed that we didn't make it. I'm going to cry myself to sleep. So as long as you make peace with what your emotions are going to be, I'm good to go. Other than that, thanks very much for letting me be part of this week in and week out. And I know we've still got the playoffs to go, but wow, is it over already?
Unbelievable.
Hard to believe.
It really is. And it always is one of those, September rolls around, it's that first weekend, and we all kind of take a minute and we go, it's going to go by fast. So enjoy it. And it's like, we never really heed those words, because I find myself, we've even had an extra game. This is an extra bonus weekend, if you will.
Right.
And it's still kind of like, that's it. And of course the players are going, yeah, that's it, bro. Like, right. And the other team, there are plenty of teams that are like, we know it's not it. We got plenty more to go. The NFL, for better or worse, this season has completed. The regular season has finished. Now, the big question for me is looking ahead, the COVID specter still there. Who is the
and picking up speed?
Yeah,
picking up steam.
And we're in that time now where it's not week 15 where you go, God, it would have been great to win this game, but we'll handle our business next week when everyone's healthy. We're not playing a best of 5. We're not playing a best of 7. This is 60 minutes. Winner moves on. And the NFL, I doubt, will go out of their way to postpone too many games. So I don't know if it's a bubble. I don't know if you just lock people in closets that only lock from the outside in. I don't know what you have to do. But I will say this, I have seen this past weekend a lot more players with masks on. And whether that's a visual, whether that's whatever it is, it's showing that they're actually, and I know the Eagles, as a few weeks ago, their position groups no longer meet. Quarterbacks no longer meet. Jalen Hurts and Reed Sinnett and Nick Sudfeld, they haven't been in the same room pretty much since week 10. And that's what they have to do for multitude of reasons. If one person gets it, they all get it. And then all of a sudden, Greg Ward has to be a quarterback in a wild card game. So just keep an eye on that. Obviously, we hope that won't be the case. But, look, let's be honest, that we have to kind of be ready for things like that. So with that, thank you all so much for listening to week 18 of the NFL Weekly here, presented by the First Off the Bench Podcast Network. Everyone comes off the bench, but we are first. Thank you all so much for listening. It's time for you all.
We're not done.
No, we are not. We'll talk to you all next week, break down all those fantastic games. I know I'll be talking about an Eagle game. Hopefully we'll be talking about a Raider game as well. And hey, we're not forgetting about Coach. The Saints still have a chance to sneak their way in. So hopefully all three can get in. But we'll see how that goes. We'll be back with you next weekend. Thank you all so much. Take care. Be safe.